Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first Castles and Company movie review. Today, we're going to be reviewing Cruella. And just a heads up, this is going to be a spoiler review. So if you haven't seen Cruella or you don't want this movie spoiled, go ahead and click out of this video, go watch the movie, and then come back. Or just so to let you know, you've been warned that this is a spoiler review. So yeah, my name is Jared Hendrickson, and joining me today for this movie review is Liam Hampshire.
Hello.
Hey Liam, how are you doing today? You ready to
I'm
review some
doing
Cruella?
I'm doing great. I'm super excited to review this movie.
Oh, really? After you trashed it when we were talking about it before?
What could you possibly mean?
Nah, I'm just kidding. So yeah, this
Yeah.
is a very informal movie review. We're just gonna jump around to whatever we decide we want to talk about. Um, Start off, Liam. Any like first notes about the movie you want to talk about?
Um, I would like to say if anyone started this review and saw that it was a spoiler review and then went to go watch the movie and then came back because they watched the movie to watch this review, I apologize for making you watch that movie.
Yeah.
No, honestly, it wasn't. It's not. It's I'll say I wasn't a huge fan of it, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a super. It's not a on a technical level. It's not like a bad movie. It's just
Yeah,
I don't. Yeah,
yeah. Like when I so to for some context, we were looking around for people to watch this movie, and pretty much everyone I asked was not interested in watching this movie. I don't think most of the American public was interested in watching this movie. If you all believe differently, let us know. But overall, I was pleasantly surprised. Like, I went in expecting nothing and got something and was like, okay, I'll take it. Like, I wasn't going in like, we have our discussions of the Cruella cinematic universe. Like, I didn't have any like previous things to go off of. Cruella's like a brand new movie. It's I don't know what do you call these, like the live action remakes? Like, and what would you call these movies that Disney days?
yeah, live action. Yeah, I guess live action reboots,
Re-
live action
pre
reimagining, live action.
Prequels or live action
Yeah,
prequels, live action reboots, whatever you want to
yeah,
call what Disney's doing nowadays.
yeah,
Whether they're actually invested in the characters or they just want to keep, what is it, like the copyrights because they have to keep making new content, whatever it
yeah.
is. Um, like I said, I was largely surprised at how much I enjoyed the movie. So Liam and I watched the movie together. He can attest that I was laughing most of it. I thought some of the parts were really funny. Like the humor was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know, Liam, what do you think about it?
I thought it was. I I the humor wasn't it wasn't bad. Like, yeah, sure, I liked the humor. The characters were very like the characters were likable uh and easy to empathize with, which is good for most Disney movies, but for a villain origin story, it would be good if the characters were like if the movie had started off with the character. I think my main thing is if the movie at the beginning was had these characters um who were likable and nice and things and being funny, that would be great. And then at the end they turn out the way that they turn out to be they become the villains that they end up being in the movie this is supposed to be a in theory like a prequel to. Then
Wait,
that would have
are you
been
talking
one
about all the
thing.
characters or just Cruella right now? Like the character
Well,
Cruella?
Cruella and the her sidekicks, Horace
Okay.
and Jasper.
Oh wait, are they there's okay, so for context here, we did a little thought experiment. So I haven't seen the 101 Dalmatians movie. Okay, I've seen it, but like it's been so long that I can't remember. Liam, you watched it today or yesterday?
I watched it today. Yeah, I
So
just watched it a few hours ago.
what were their names again? Horace and do you remember the other one?
Horace and Jasper.
Were they
Horace is the one with the wink dog.
so are they in The 101 Dalmatians?
Yeah, they're Cruella Deville's cronies that are the ones that are like dog napping. Like they pull up in the van and they're like, "Come on, Jasper, let's get the dogs, get those rangy mutts in there," and they throw them in the thing, and then they take
Uh,
them to the the house, the Cruella Deville mansion, and that's where they keep all the puppies. And
okay. Okay.
yeah,
So they're supposed to be also like villains in the 101 Dalmatians movie. Am I correct with that?
yeah, they're honestly, yeah, villains in this. They're henchmen.
Yeah,
They're
well, you
they're
could you
they're
could argue that henchmen are also villains, I guess.
yeah,
They're supposed to be like a negative presence in the movie, I guess. Even if it's like
yeah,
comedic relief or whatever.
yeah,
Okay. That makes more sense. So going in, I didn't know that to the Cruella movie. I was just like, "Oh, there's these two guys. They're all their own little family." Like in the Cruella movie, they also explain that like, "Oh, these are my family." Like, does she respect them in the 101 Dalmatians movie?
oh
Like,
no,
no,
absolutely not.
absolutely not. Okay. So, Liam and I had this whole debate of whether this movie is supposed to be a prequel to 101 Dalmatians or if it's a reboot. I think it's like both. It's a prequel that's a reboot because it doesn't quite fit in with the 101 Dalmatians movie in the sense that the characters are like too good in comparison to the 101 Dalmatians movie. Like for all of you who have seen the Cruella movie, at the end of the movie, she's um yeah, she's Cruella. So she starts off as her like she was born as Estella, that's her name, but then she has the name Cruella, which is like her crueler side. And at the end of the movie, she's Cruella, but she's also like more respect and she's like more how do you say that? Like more like high
Sympathetic.
strung? No, I'm saying like high strung like from Estella to Cruella. What's like the difference that you'd call that?
Oh,
More dramatic?
um,
More dramatic?
more narcissistic.
Yeah. So she's like halfway through the movie, she's like super narcissistic, but then she kind of tones it back by the end, and that's where like you finish off with her being um kind of a Stella, kind of Cruella, kind of like a mix in between. She's not quite like evil Cruella, but she's not like super nice either. So I guess my
Yeah,
yeah. You have anything to say on that, Liam?
yeah, it's like they're she's like three different characters in this movie because she starts off at the beginning uh with being like misunderstood, kind of bit of a troublemaker kid, you know, the classic kind of like uh misunderstood kid who's like a genius, who's secretly a genius, but like none of the adults will recognize it because she irritates them with her antics, and so they're like they kick her out of school, and it's uh, because of all of her uh, because she like is constantly breaking the rules and things like that. And so then she starts working, and then I forget, and then that kind of goes until she's working in the fashion industry and is kind of like making her way uh, making her way kind of through the ranks of being a fashion designer and like learning how to do all this stuff, which is fairly brief, but like it's a movie. Um, and like during that time, she's like kind of a uh, she's like she's a scam artist. She's a bit of like a crook, but she's not like a she's not a bad person. She's just kind of like a sympathetic criminal character.
She's doing crimes, but we still kind of root for her.
Yeah, like not necessarily like kind of in a Robin Hood way, not in the way that Robin Hood does, not in the way that Robin Hood does things for other people, but in the way that he's a um, he's a criminal that you're kind of on his side,
Yeah, yeah.
and because when the story starts, she meets the two sidekicks because they're all I believe orphans that are like just living on the street, and you're like, you want these orphans to survive.
Yeah, yeah.
They're so it's like it's okay they're doing crime. Uh, and it's you know it's and when they're like pinching like they're like doing shoplifting and
Yeah, you
things
heard
like
it
that.
here. You heard it here first, folks. Disney condones thieves. Just heads up.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing is you can be a villain as long as the audience likes you, and then they'll
Exactly.
make a movie about you that shows that you're actually just misunderstood.
Exact. So I know you said that like you were going on your whole
And
tirade about like her during the different points of the movie, but just to cut in for a sec, that like that's how I felt
right.
like this entire movie was, is that it was kind of like, oh, she's not actually trying to skin these dogs and turn them into coats. She's just misunderstood. She just had a bad upbringing. She just I don't know, like she's actually good, but she's portrayed in a way that isn't. And like I've made this point to Liam that Disney does this nowadays with like all of their villains, or like my point of contention was like Loki. So like they make the Loki TV show. Of course they're gonna make Loki, like people are gonna support Loki, even though he's kind of seen like as the bad guy in Avengers. Like he's he's like the good guy in his TV show. Just like in this, Cruella is the good guy of um her own movie, even though it's like a villain movie. Like I don't know,
Well,
Liam.
that
Yeah, go.
well, I was gonna say I haven't seen the like I haven't seen the Loki TV show, but the
Yeah,
thing
no,
is
I guess.
even in the rest of the Marvel, the from the offset, Loki is a conflicted character. He's Thor's brother. I mean,
Yeah,
the the in the first Thor movie, the reason he starts kind of becoming a villain is because he wants to impress Odin, his dad.
so you're
And
saying he's also misunderstood.
well, I'm saying it's not necessarily that he's misunderstood. It's that the conflict between him being good and him doing things that are evil for his own like selfish kind of insecure interests is something that's like written into the character from
Yes,
its
from the
inception.
get-go. Yeah, yeah.
Whereas Cruella Deville, like written isn't written to be that complex. And you can make a movie that expands on that and kind of peers into the actions that she does and explains, okay, here's maybe why she does that, and make her make you empathize with her. But that this movie doesn't do that. This movie completely rewrites her character
Yeah,
to
like
make her sympathetic, and then make tries to tie plot threads to the first movie to make it seem like it's one cohesive thing,
yeah,
and that's not what happens.
like you were trying to say, you had mentioned that like Cruella's different. You said like a three different people during the movie, right? Like
Yeah,
There's Estella, just to like shorten your you were going on a whole tirade, but like
yeah.
to
Sorry,
shorten
I
it.
can the point I can
Yeah,
shorten the
okay,
point
you
I
can
was trying
shorten
to
it.
make there. The it starts off the three characters I saw were her at the beginning when she's like young and up and coming fashion designer, and she's not like overly mean to people. She's a little mischievous, but she like she works with others and just wants to be and her main like goal is just she just wants to be recognized for her talent and her passion.
Yeah,
Then in the middle, after she pulls the stunt where she dresses as she kind of creates this Cruella Deville character to mess with Emma Thompson's character. I forget her name. Do you know remember her name?
oh, in the movie she's just
Yeah.
the Baroness, I think, right? The Baroness.
Okay. The Baroness. Yeah, she probably has a name, but um, but when she wants to upstage the Baroness, she like begins to act like Cruella Deville, and kind of like the way Cruella Deville acts in like 101 Dalmatian and classically how she's portrayed.
Yeah,
And then after after that um, after that ball, she gets back and she continues to act like Cruella Deville. Like uh, it's not there's not a moment where she like gradually becomes more and more like Cruella Deville throughout the movie. There's kind of she just kind of
she
on the drop of
backpedals
a
it,
hat.
right? Yeah,
well, at the drop of a hat, she goes from being like a normal sympathetic character to immediately being Cruella Deville, who is mean to her
Oh, okay.
subordinates, uh, which irritates Horace and Jasper, who are also like nice people, who are nice to
Yeah.
people pretty much throughout the movie.
Yeah, they're not
And
at no point are Jasper and like Horace, like you said in 101 Dalmatians, they're the ones that kidnap the dogs, right? Like yeah,
yeah,
they're seeing kidnapping the Dalmatians in what Cruella movie Cruella, but they're doing it like because like Cruella told them and they're not like too happy about it. They're like, you know what I
yeah, and
mean?
there's kind
They
of
don't take
this, and
pride in
there's
it. There's no like it's not their
yeah, and the
identity.
yeah, and there's kind of there's kind of this it gets brought up a few times when they're kind of dealing with the Dalmatians that it's like, hey, you're not like actually going to kill these dogs, right? And Corell's like, no, 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 I'm probably not going to kill them. And like at sometimes she kind of wavers on that, but throughout the whole movie, Horace and Jasper are like, we don't want to hurt these dogs. We like dogs. We have the dog. We have the one-eyed dog that we
Yeah,
really like, which is which is kind of weird going like seeing them in 101 Dalmatians, which I'll probably get into that in a bit later.
yeah.
But then the third character she ends up as is then after kind of the like the point in the movie where she kind of everything falls apart and she is like uh, the I forget what happens at that like what causes that.
It was it when she gets the her hotel burns down, like when she's in the
Right,
fire.
right. Uh, the Baroness catches that, like, finds their place, takes back the dogs, and tries to kill Cruella by burning everything in the room furthest from her and hoping she eventually dies.
Yeah,
Um, which I thought was kind of funny. But then afterwards, she breaks the Horace and Jasper um, out of the jail, and they're like, "You were treating us like
Language.
and you nearly got us killed. I don't want to. We don't want to deal with you." And then she explains to them the twist that happens. Baroness is actually her mother, and she's having to deal with this. And then Horace and Jasper are like, and she's like, "I'm not going to be mean to you guys anymore. I've learned to become a better person,"
yeah.
which doesn't
Doesn't
really,
reflect her in 100, her like her character as
yeah,
being like you're my henchman.
yeah. And then by the end of, and that kind of continues to the end of the movie where it's like the lesson that's learned by her character is almost like it's sure, yeah, you want to be like
Dramatic. Yeah,
ruthless.
you can be
Yeah,
like,
you want
ruthless and
ruthless.
dramatic, but you got to be nice to like the people close to you.
Yeah, it's like it's important to have friends,
Yeah.
isn't what which isn't really who Cruella Deville is at the uh, at the end of the movie. And I'll say if this I wouldn't have as much of a problem with a movie that's about reimagining Cruella Deville as a a true reimagination of Cruella Deville as a sympathetic character who who there's a film because I know there might be a sequel to this that goes on and has a film series
Okay.
where but
Yeah.
the but the
So
thing is that is after because I watched the trailers for this movie after I saw 101 Dalmatians just kind of refresh myself on some of the stuff that happens
yeah.
uh, and from the I think we mentioned it a few times when we were watching it but from seeing the trailers uh, it's very obvious that Cruella was inspired by Joker at least just based on the way like not even
Yeah.
based
So
on it's like a
don't
villain.
spoil Joker at all right now.
No,
It's in
no,
your. But
I'm
yeah, feel free
no.
to
It's
compare to
purely
it.
from a presentation perspective. Like the you can watch the trailer for Joker and then watch the trailer for Cruella, and you'll see the kind of the world is created in muted colors. The it's got kind of like somewhat like happy but with a like a tinge of somberness in the like popular songs that are played. It's her kind of monologuing about how she's she's like I'm
You sly
someone blah blah
dog,
blah.
you had me monologuing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I'm Cruella, and it's marketed as it's the origin story to the the one, the only Cruella.
Yeah, so just I know you like we talked about this before, but you've gone you can go on. I know you could probably go for hours on how this movie isn't really this isn't really a prequel. It's like it's a reimagining that has very similar aspects, but it's very clearly not a direct prequel to 101 Dalmatians, and it seems like they're starting their own like redo of it. So
Yeah.
so I think we both agree on that this is very clearly not that yes it was
Well,
marketed like that, but no it's not going to be.
well, I don't know about that because it's part of I think part of the reason going back to because we talked about this before, so I to kind of go back a little bit. The reason I kind of am kind of focused on the way that this relates to the like 101 Dalmatians and the character of Cruella de Vil outside of this movie is because this movie itself, it isn't really there isn't a story that it like we haven't really mentioned what the story of this movie is, but the story that it's telling in the movie isn't really about anything. Like if the movie, if you just change the name of like Cruella, Horace, and Jasper's characters, there's not a real excuse me, there's not a real premise to this movie other than it's about okay, it's about an up and coming fashion designer who uh, is who meets this woman who wants to make her who kind of takes her under wing almost as an apprentice, a little more as kind of a uh, one of many designers that she kind of uh, like takes their ideas and is like is, is um, uh,
No, you got this. Come on.
thank you. What's the word? She's like she's very she like micromanages
Yeah.
the everything and takes credit for everything and is uh, it's her show and that's one of the things that Cruella doesn't like. And anyway, sorry, back to my point. I went off on a tangent again. The
I'm here for
it's
it.
about she meets this woman and she's like, no, I want to do this myself. I'm going to become a bigger and better fashion designer than my sensei uh, ever was. And then she starts to do that, and then there's butting heads, and they become rivals. And she finds out she's the her this her this other fashion designer is her mother, and she's responsible for the death of her mother, who she originally blamed on herself,
Uh-huh.
which she blamed on herself by leading the woman's Dalmatians that end up tackling her, who she originally believed to her mother to be, off of a ledge, which is
If that
hilarious.
sounded confusing, yes, it's supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah,
She has a
yeah,
mother,
that
but then the mother's not her mother, and her. Like I had said to Liam, this thing took so many. I feel like it took a lot of things from Star Wars in the sense that it's like, oh no, the big bad guy is actually your mother. Like, what is it? Like the Obi-Wan said you killed my father. Or, no, I am your father. Like, you killed my mother. No, I am your mother. You know what I mean? Like, and then there was the for those of you who have seen Han Solo, or is it just called Solo? I think the movie's just called Solo.
yeah, Solo.
The Solo prequel movie. Um, when he walks up to like one of the Imperial guards to conscript, or the Imperials, they go, we need like a last name. And he's like, oh, my name is just Han. He's like, all right, well, your name's now Han Solo, because there's just one of you. It's just like when she, with the car, when at a certain point in the movie, Is it Horace or Jasper who drives up in the car? I can't tell you which is which.
Uh, for
Which is the one she's like kind of in love with? Is that Horace or Jasper?
I think that's Jasper.
Okay, so
I think Horace is the
Horace.
one with the dog.
Okay, so Horace drives up in this car that's called a DeVille, and he goes, "Oh, it's like this car's called Devil," and then Jasper's like, "No, you idiot! It's DeVille," and she's like, "Oh, I like that DeVille." Like it's not even like her real name. It's like something that she tacked on later. You know what I mean? So it like doesn't have
Yeah,
any like you had mentioned like one of the big parts of that is that, like no, she's a devil. Like the original Cruella, the reason her name is Cruella Deville is because she's a cruel devil. But now it's
yeah, and
like
it's the same thing with Han Solo, where the like in the original when the original the character was originally written, like Han Solo was given the name of like the last name of Solo as kind of a bit of a cheat, like a bit of an on the nose way of telling the audience
yes,
something about his
yes,
character.
exactly.
So then when you retroactively make
Oh
so
yeah,
when
oh
you
yeah, Liam.
like
Then
if
how does Luke skywalk? Huh? Is he is he a good pilot or something?
exactly that's the it's kind of it's the charm of these of kind of telling a story in like uh in a short form way like a movie is.
Yeah.
And so but when you say, oh, he we wrote this character called Han Solo and we named him Han Solo because he's alone. And then when you write a prequel to that character and you say, oh, his name is Solo,
For no good reason.
he's alone, so we'll name him Solo. It's it's it kind of makes
Takes away
it's
something.
yeah, it's like we got it the first time. We get that there's not a we it's kind of it takes away from it a little bit the because before it's like, oh, that's a funny coincidence. He's her name is Deville. She's like her name is Deville. Of course she was going to be evil. She's Cruella Deville. Her name is Cruel Devil. Of
Uh
course
huh.
she's going to be evil. But then when it becomes, oh no, she chose that name, and then also she's actually not that evil. It's it
As I like to say to Liam, you are a bad guy, but this does not mean you are bad guy. For those of you who have seen Wreck It Ralph.
yeah yeah, and that's and I'm fine with and I'm perfectly happy with, and I would love more movies that are about that are about exploring villains, characters, and why what drives villains to do things. But this isn't even a, a story about Cruella Deville, the character. She's so different. Like she acts like Cruella Deville acts like well, like honestly, the thing I found funny was after watching the 101 Dalmatians, the animated one, is that they they had a Cruella. They were writing a Cruella movie, and they're like, oh, who should we make the villain for this Cruella movie? And the character they ended up with was pretty much just Cruella Deville.
Wait, wait, what do you mean? Isn't the villain the Baroness?
Yeah, but she acts and
Like,
talks
like Cruella.
and has the same and has pretty much the exact same values as Cruella Deville.
Well, of
Will
course,
do
she's her
literally
mother.
yeah, but there's no difference between the two, and it doesn't seem like that was done on purpose, or maybe if it was done on purpose, they didn't do anything with that other than okay, well now there's two Cruella Deville characters.
Yeah, so what they did is they
There wasn't an there
Cruella
like there,
Cruella vilified the Baroness, and then the Baroness had every single feature that Cruella did in said in the animated movie, no 101 Dalmatians.
yeah,
So it's like, why would Cruella become the thing that she hated in order to,
like
like it?
that should have been what the the movie was about was her like honestly let me let me say I guess what in theory what a good Cruella movie might look like from like what I've from seeing 101 Dalmatians and then seeing Cruella. I think that it's briefly mentioned in Cruella that uh, that the reporter type, the reporter character is like the one who eventually gets the female dog, the
Okay.
female Dalmatian
Is this like the end
is,
credit scene thing you're talking about?
yeah,
That's how you
she
know.
is
Wait, that's how you know this is going to be the Cruella cinematic universe. They've already got the first end credit scene.
yeah, because the anyway, the she and Cruella were classmates, and so um, right. So you
Yes,
start off
yes, they
with
were
you could
classmates.
and they were classmates. Uh,
Oh,
it was anyway, the so it starts off with her maybe meeting, maybe being friends with the um, the wife from 101 Dalmatians, the reporter in this movie.
yeah.
Um, they start off being friends, and she's like starting off as a good person. She could even go through the whole thing of becoming a fashion designer, growing in the industry, like learning how to become this like crazy amazing good fashion designer on her own, and she's like top of the world, and then she becomes Cruella Deville to kind of um, uh, to to beat the Baroness, and all of her like shenanigans, and then she could learn the Baroness. You could even have the whole thing with Baroness being her mother, and that might make it interesting. Have the Baroness be her mother, and she defeats the Baroness, and maybe gets her like either destroys her business or gets her sent to jail somewhere in the like at the 2/3 mark of the movie, and all throughout it, all throughout this, you gradually, scene by scene, have her becoming more and more. And as it's brought up that she's her mother, bring you make the parallels between the Baroness and Cruella. And as it becomes, you slowly see as she starts to take over the fashion industry from the Baroness, she starts to become her mother, becoming this Cruella Deville character. And then at the like the third of the movie, the last third of the movie, the climax, you kind of see her like completely give up her morals, completely become a someone who cares about her success in the business above everything else, just like her mother, just like the person she didn't want to be, the person she hated more than anything in the world, and was responsible for the woman who actually raised her, who in reality was really her mother. And the tragedy is she becomes this evil like dog skinning like monster at the end, and it's a tragedy, kind of like with uh, kind of like how a movie like um, not like a movie like the Godfather or something, or any of these other kind of corruption style, or like Breaking Bad, any of these movies where it's a where that uh, where a character is corrupted into becoming a villain, that, that even though
Wait,
they
are you saying at the end
they
she did become a villain or didn't?
I'm saying at the end she should become. This is my
Oh,
theoretical
yeah. Your
what I think
complaint
the
with
movie
the
should have
movie
been.
plot, yeah.
Yeah, that over the course of it, she slowly becomes the Baroness. She gets like in this movie, she gets rid of the Baroness like right at the end, and it's this big triumphant moment. And the climax of the movie is her beating the Baroness and learning from the Baroness and learning not to be a bad person like the Baroness was,
Yeah,
which
which
works
is
for
takes
a
away from the character.
yeah, which in a vacuum is like a your pretty standard fare like like kind of a happy learning not to be like kids movie learning not to be like um
Be nice to your friends. Something
yeah, be
you
nice
can
to your
be
friends.
unique, but yeah, like it seems like the moral of the story was be everyone is kind of misunderstood. Be nice to your friends because they got you where you are. Don't be overly you can be like dramatic and yourself, but don't be overly cruel, which doesn't make sense when her name's Cruella, I guess.
Yeah, it's contradictory. It doesn't really. I just don't.
It's very
There.
Disney cookie cutter. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, there
at like
was.
the most accurate point when she's Cruella, as in the most accurate understanding the audience has of Cruella going into this movie is like halfway through the movie when she's like annoying and she's like making like, oh, their coats would be good for skinning and the Dalmatians would make good coats. Like that's when she's at her most accurate, but then she backpedals. So like
Yeah,
I know you attack this. I know you've been attacking the plot for it, Liam, and like I agree with you that it doesn't consist um with the 101 Dalmatians point, but just so we can get on from the plot and just start talking about other aspects of the movie. From my point of view, like I said, it's a very cookie cutter Disney movie, but it that's there's a reason Disney is been so successful as they found like a method that works and they've kind of stuck to it. Like going in for me without having seen 101 Dalmatians in a long time, like I was presently surprised by the movie. Like I enjoyed the movie. I liked how it started off with her being like too much of a pushover, and then too much of her being like mean to everyone else, and then she like finds her balance. I liked that personally. Um like I mentioned before, like it's not very accurate to Cruella as in like our understanding of Cruella, but if this was like a reimagining, I thought it was a very good reimagining. The only other complaint I had was with the plot was the romance, where it seemed like out of nowhere she was like to Jasper. If we said Jasper was the one she was romantic with, right?
yeah. Well, it's because
Yeah,
it's a part of the cookie cutter thing. It's because that's what happens when you create a when you create a like you were talking about that Disney has found a formula that works. I mean, that's what happens when you take like movie making an art form and then you create is like, okay, well, we're just gonna stick to this formula because it
yeah.
gets people to.
They weren't trying to make any risks with this movie, and that's I think your complaint with it and my complaint with it too. Like the Joker, like we're not like I said, this isn't a Joker review, so we're not going to get into the Joker, but they took risks in that movie, and it's like
It's
a
a
rated, and it's a good movie. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like they took risks that yeah, they were risks, but they paid off. This movie didn't take any risks, and as a result, like it's very I don't want to say immemorable, but even you were like, you're forgetting parts of it. Like I'm forgetting parts of it, and it's been like a day
Yeah,
since we've seen it. it
it's because it's not about anything.
yeah, I agree. Okay. Now that we've talked about that, I agree. It's
Like if
yeah,
you were to pitch this movie, if you were a writer and said, I have a script for a Cruella movie, and then someone says, okay, what's it about? Like,
Cruella.
yeah, it's about Cruella. It's not like you can say Joker. It's about Joker dealing with his
Mental illness.
dealing with his mental illness. That is the through that is the thing that is throughout the movie. The theme is him dealing with his mental illness, and that
Yes.
is what like everything is kind of based on. But with this, like you could have something similar with this where it's like you kind of have this. I don't know. It's also weird because they kind of try to have this half. They kind of try to give her like a uh, it's like almost multiple not multiple personality. It's not called multiple personality disorder anymore. It's called uh, dissociative identity disorder,
Okay.
where she has kind of
The Estella and Cruella, the two
yeah,
girls.
like she speaks about them as if they're two separate entities
Yeah. At one
who
point,
like make decisions differently,
yeah,
but
like at one
it's
point in the
never.
beginning, she's even like, "Goodbye, Cruella." Like, or I mean, it's a thing her mom has her do, but it's almost like two people living in one body
Yeah, but they never really explore that. They kind of just use it in the
whenever they
way
want.
yeah, it's kind of the reason they don't use the term multiple personality disorder is because it's not just like everyone has multiple personalities. Like you act different depending on like who you're talking to. It's just a natural thing of how humans interact. So people
Yeah.
have different personalities in different situations. which is
Uh-huh.
kind of what her Cruella Estella thing is. They're not. She still is. She still is lucid and is. She's just in certain situations seem to bring out these narcissistic tendencies, but she seems to have labeled her narcissistic tendencies as being Cruella and her not being narcissistic as being Estella, as opposed to it being actual like different identities. And so it was kind of a thing of another being like, hey, we want to have we want to have the we want to have the kind of the character, the complex character uh, of something like Joker or like Taxi Driver, which Joker is very much like, um, and and then it's kind of something that's used to explain away why she kind of switches back and forth,
Yeah,
but
I
is never really explored and is kind of used when it's convenient for where she how she needs to act for the plot.
yeah, I feel like it takes away the fact that she's aware of both of them because Cruella in the like I'm saying, I'm doing this generally based off of my understanding of Cruella. Her in 101 Dalmatians would be like she's not aware of that she's the villain. She's just her own person, you know what I mean? Like she's not self-aware. In this, it's like Cruella's like kind of self-aware of like when she's being a narcissist and when she's not, you know? Does that make
Yeah, I
sense?
mean she's a I mean in the movie she's not really even a she's by design a two-dimensional character. It's like if you were to make
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
it's
They're trying to make a two-dimensional character into like a three-dimensional character, which
yeah,
yeah.
it's like making a movie about like Sauron's days in school. It it's like the whole point of
Okay,
Sauron is
yeah.
he's this he is evil incarnate. He is a guy in black armor with a black mace, and when you look at him, you go, "Oh my
Did
God, this
someone say
guy is
Darth Vader?
super." Yeah, like Darth Vader. But the thing about Darth Vader is uh, when they were trying to explore when they were trying to take this character and explore his motivations behind it. Like by Return of the Jedi, you are taking off the helmet, and the culmination of that arc is, oh, he is someone who was a powerful warrior who was who was corrupted through the dark side into becoming this evil person, but then him meeting his son and him coming along eventually redeemed him. Which you could argue of like, okay, he still killed a whole bunch of people, but but it's like it was when they explored Darth Vader as the
He
human.
killed younglings.
Yeah, it's yeah when they're exploring Darth Vader, they explore it within the context of him being this dark Sith Lord, whereas really they don't really do any effort to like take the character that is in Cruella and explore it in a way that kind of juxtaposes her to what we know she will eventually become. Because in the I guess to since you haven't seen it, to paint a bit of a better picture, in the movie because he only shows up in the movie, she's only in the movie for like the she's in it for like two scenes and then like right at the end because when the dogs get kidnapped, they're being held by Horace and Jasper, so it's them just kind of hanging out in the rundown DeVille manor, and then like the cat that comes to kind of help them. They're like throwing darts at the cat,
Okay.
and Cruella DeVille herself is uh, she's introduced as being like layer upon layer of furs, and she's like, I love furs. There's nothing else I love above furs, and she's smoking this like long putrid uh, like um, like pipe or like long cigar that like has this putrid yellowy green smoke that comes out of it that she like blows onto things, and it's very good like character establishing animation type stuff.
Okay. So just to cut this part short, so we don't spend too long talking about it, it's just so save on time. Your main complaint is they're taking a two-dimensional character and trying to turn them into a three. Is that what I'm getting kind of right?
Yeah, but I don't mean that in the sense of like a literal cartoon two dimensional and and live action three dimensional. I mean
No.
from
When
like
you
a writing
when you
perspective.
mentioned
Yeah.
animation, that's not what understood. I meant yes, like what
Yeah,
you
but it's
said.
another example of how like an animated movie and a live action movie, there are there are things that are put into a animated movie that tell the story the animated movie is trying to tell better, that don't work the same way in a live action movie. And that can kind of go for a lot of things. And if you don't take that into account, you end up kind of just having a very average movie like this movie is, and then just kind of throwing in little Easter eggs to the original property
Yeah.
to kind of make it a hey, this is a part of the this is a it's a part of the same story.
It's
It's
a
part of
part
the
of the
story
101.
you, the viewer, loves.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. That makes a lot of sense. But so this next part that we're gonna do is just so
Okay.
we've talked the plot to death, but
I mean, yeah.
so we'll just go on do this kind of rapid fire. So rapid fire. So acting overall acting. Let's talk about let's
Uh,
focus on maybe the main four characters. The Baroness, Emma Stone, Horace, and Jasper. Overall, their acting good, bad.
uh, I liked Emma. I liked Emma Thompson's acting. She did great. Um, Emma Stone, she did better. I think she did better as the like in the beginning as the up and coming
Estella.
Estella. But once she started to act like Cruella Deville, because the Baroness acts so much like Cruella Deville, it's hard to not see the flaws in her performance when compared to Emma Thompson's performance.
Okay.
A, because she's so good at it, and B, because it's more close to she's more close as a character to the actual Cruella Deville, so her acting like Cruella Deville makes more sense.
Okay.
And then Horace and Jasper, I liked their performance. It wasn't it
I'll
they did good.
I'll
They did
contrast
fine.
that. I just on the Horace and Jasper. I mostly agree with Emma Thompson and Emma Stone. I thought Emma Stone did really well as the Estella portion, but then yeah, with Cruella, I was like a little more taken out of it. I was like, okay, like I see what you're going for, but I'm not completely bought by it. Um, the Baroness, yeah, I liked hers as well. I just there were some points where I was just like, it's over the top, but I guess that is her character. But then I thought Horace did amazing. Jasper, I wasn't completely sold on. I feel like he didn't convey like or like you know how like all the time they're like, oh, Cruella's acting really cruel to us, or like she's like pushing us over. You know how like they talked about
Yeah,
that a lot. He didn't like. He just kept acting like he was getting pushed over and pushed over, but he doesn't like. He didn't. I don't know. He didn't do a good job of the actor. I didn't believe didn't do a good job of like helping me buy that. Like, what you're just gonna take this? Like why are you just gonna take this? You know what I mean? Does that make sense at
yeah.
all?
Well, that's more to do with the writing.
The
Is
writing? Okay, so
it's
the actor had to work with that. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, like the like part of it is the like I think the actors as a whole did pretty good with what they were given. No one really stood out to me as kind of like completely botching anything. They
Oh
all
no,
did.
yeah. You got a point. You got a good point there. That no, everything, the acting wasn't like nothing was so bad that like you're like, what is this person doing? Like nothing like
Yeah,
that.
the lines were delivered in a way that the way that I think when they were written they were imagined or they were going to be delivered regardless of who ended up
Yeah,
acting. Because I mean, like Jasper doesn't really have that much of a character.
that's true.
Like he's like, how would you
He's
like?
a
There's
henchman.
a yeah. Like let's think he's a henchman, which is like fine. It's but he has a lot of screen time in the movie, and you're not supposed to think of him as just a henchman. You're supposed to think of him as a as a childhood friend of Cruella's that she's starting to treat rather harshly. But
Uh-huh.
it's like to think about it, Jasper and Horace are never given any like wants or desires outside of.
Whoa, whoa, no, 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 no. You got Horace all wrong. Remember, he's got the angle. That's his want. He wants the angle. Remember, Liam?
Yeah, but that's just the angle on whatever that's just the angle of whatever it is they Cruella wants them to do. There's
Yeah.
not, which you could have as a character trait of them being like blind followers of Cruella because she's like super smart and cunning and everything. But you're they're they're written as if they're supposed to be like they're as if they're not cronies. They're people, they're childhood friends, and they should be treated as such. But if you're
Yeah.
going to make them more complicated than like minions, you have to be like it would make it more interesting if Jasper had something that he wanted to do with his life that Cruella was like constantly getting in the way of because she wants to become the best fashion designer ever, and that's kind of another way in
All
which
right, we're getting back to
she's
plot again. We're getting back to plot again.
well, that's because nothing else about this movie is interesting.
All right. But so that you don't go on another rant about that again, we'll just
All right,
so real quick, like
you know I could
2 or 3 seconds
volunteer.
here for humor. Love the humor. Love every time they talked about the angle. I'm trying to remember if there are other large portions of um the guy in who's working in the first shop. Every time he's like talking with her and she's like trying to ask for a promotion, like I thought that was really funny. Um, Roger, the what is it, the lawyer? He was pretty good too. I don't know if you thought that
Uh, I mean, sure. I don't know what his
role
function in
was.
the movie. Yeah, his fun. I don't. He. I think he helps them out at one point towards the end, but I don't. I didn't get why he was in the movie other than I guess later so that he could get Pongo, the male dog Pongo.
Pongo? Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
yeah. Is Roger the name of the guy in 101 Dalmatians who has Pongo?
yes, yeah,
Okay, well then I'll take I'll take your word for that one. But then moving on, so this is a good point to talk about the dogs. Let's talk about the dog CGI. So there was a lot of CGI in this movie, especially like I just mentioned, that associated with the dogs. Um, it seemed like the Dalmatians, the majority of the time, were CGI'd. Like when they're like running, like kicking the mom off the cliff, things like that.
yeah,
Every time they're chasing young Estella or old Estella, at any point that like the dogs were doing something aggressive, it seemed like it was CGI. Do you agree with that?
yeah, yeah.
Did it take you out? Like for me, it took me out of the movie to be like, well, that's clearly not real.
Yeah, a little bit. I think now after having another thing having after having watched Under One Dalmatians, the first time that the CGI dogs stood out to me a little bit was there was when she meets Jasper and Horace kind of in a rundown like the rundown warehouse they kind of operate from or building
Yeah.
attic. Um, she has her dog with them, and the dog they for some reason the dog's just sitting there like watching them talk, and every time they cut to her like the dog's there and
Speaking of
they
dogs, real quick.
it's a CGI dog and it sorry what were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say, speak of dogs, real quick. My dog's on my lap right now. His name's Wolf, and he keeps hitting my mic. I don't know if you can hear his like his collar jingling, but yeah, keep going though. I just
Yeah, it's all good.
he just keeps bumping. Out now he's shaking. He just keeps bumping my mic.
It's okay. It's okay.
Cruella's
Corella's
coming
good.
for you. Yeah, it's like Santa Claus, you know, like you don't behave this year, Cruella's gonna get you. Yeah, continue.
Exactly.
The dog, the chase scene or beginning.
Yeah, I found it weird that they seemed to have the dog CGI just so that like because the dog was like looking back and forth between them as they were talking, and that took me out of it a little bit. But after seeing the animated movie, they're like another thing because it's like an animated movie where the dogs like talk to each other, like they're the main characters of the movie. They're a little more personified where they'll do things like, oh hey,
Steal a
let's do
wallet.
this. Yeah, they don't act like dogs, they act like like Disney
Yeah,
animals.
that's exactly
And
what I was thinking. Like the Disney companion.
yeah, and I think that it if they had leaned into that and they kind of if they were like we're gonna have CGI dogs and we're gonna have them act a little more personified, like we'll have them look back and forth between people as they're talking. Have them we'll have them maybe do some things that are um, a little more like human like. I would have been fine with that if they had kind of leaned into that and made that like a stylistic choice as opposed to a thing that happens so like subtly and infrequent enough that it seems more like just
A convenience?
uh yeah, a convenience or a mistake or like a
Yeah, they
just
just these specific people have the most animated dogs in the world. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, of course, they just so happen to have a dog that loves to do robbering or like robbery. You know what I mean? Like, it's just
yeah,
like
well, and that
the dog with the eye patch Wink. It just to me it seemed like he's just good with this. Like,
yeah, and on it actually that I
did they
could
train him? Like,
yeah, like that could I could get that. Like you have like the little kid like finds this little dog, and as they grow up he like trains them, he trains the dog to help them with like little crime capers and stuff like that. I could see that. It's more when they it seems like they it to be honest, it seems like they made the dog CGI because for either safety or
yeah,
logistical reasons it
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
easier for them to just have CGI dogs.
Yeah, like they're not
It
gonna
didn't seem like anything more than that.
like the reason they wouldn't have a CGI dog to run and chase a girl and like possibly attack the girl. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah,
They're not gonna
yeah,
have a dog push a woman off a cliff. Like it makes sense. I just my complaint was that like I was easily able to tell that it was a CGI dog. That was like kind of
yeah,
my complaint. Like I think I mentioned this while we are watching the movie. Like at no point am I like, yo, Thanos is CGI. Like my brain's just like, oh, Thanos is he's. I guess he's an alien, so that doesn't really count. But like Rocket Raccoon, I'm like, I'm never like, yeah, that looks like CGI. I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah, it's a talking raccoon. I'm good with it.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
also admit that the budget for Cruella, like we pointed out, no one really seemed to care too much about this movie, at least in my sphere of friends and whatnot.
yeah.
Other people on the podcast, but so it
I
makes
would, I,
sense that they didn't have all the
yeah.
budget to dump into the CGI budget.
I believe this was something that was made specifically as kind of a another thing to have on
Disney
another
Plus.
new yeah another new thing to have on Disney Plus.
You'd be like, hey, you have something on Disney Plus, you should get it. There you go. It's
Yeah,
new, it's
so
fresh.
it's like because I imagine there are people who are like, oh, I don't want to get Disney Plus. If it's just Disney stuff, why would I want to do that? And Disney can be like, see, we own so many gosh darn properties that we could make a million different spin-offs of movies on characters that you recognize. You have to get Disney Plus.
Exactly. All right, so last two things that we'll hit on. So as we're running out of time here, we'll do first the music. What do you think about music choices they chose? For me, I enjoyed that there are a lot of songs that I knew, and we made that argument that since it's Disney, they can afford to have these popular songs. Like they had "Time of the Season." That's the only one I can remember off the top of my head. All of a sudden,
No, well, the main one I remember is at the end where they literally play "Sympathy for the Devil,"
yes,
which
there you go.
I did, which a plus. But it's the music and the narration in this movie. They
Wait, Liam,
both,
Liam, get it? Sympathy for the Deville.
yeah,
Ah,
exactly. That's why they played it.
no, really,
It's
I didn't know that.
yeah, the the uh, the both the narration and the song choice for this movie are for the same reason. Like throughout the movie, I kind of was imagining what especially the action scenes would seem like without like having popular already established as being really great songs from the time period. Like they're one to be like, hey, this is the time period. See, we have all these popular '70s songs, you know.
Yeah, I
And
was
then it's also
confused. I was still
to make
confused
the
exactly what the time period was. Like there was like 64 was like what her birth or something. It was like was it 80s, 70s?
it was at the beginning they said she was talking about how she is a genius child there's something like she was talking about uh, she's she's genius child that does that. But I do these things and something something. But that wasn't as well accepted in the '60s.
Okay,
And then she grows up,
10 years
and when
later, so it's like
yeah, 10,
70s.
so it's '70s, I believe.
Yeah, I think the best I understood, this movie took place in like 1974, 1975, sometime around there. So
Yeah,
I I,
big
I like that the
'70s.
music generally reflected that decade, and yeah, I thought the musicals it was enjoyable to listen to. Nothing
Yeah, the
outstanding
music.
except for the sympathy for the devil.
Yeah, well, the music was good. The music was good before the movie came out. The music was good when you add it to your Spotify play. That's
it
the
didn't
reason they
it
used it, is
didn't
because they are.
add it didn't add or take away, is what you're trying to say? Or
It didn't add anything to the. It was there to mask the bland taste of the rest of the movie.
okay, sounds good. Then final thing, cinematography. I just tap this on there if we want to talk about it. Anything about camera angles? Anything about how
I liked it.
any
It
scenes
was
that
good.
like stood out to you? Like their shots that stood out to you?
Um, No, I mean there were some good shots in there. I remember when I watched the movie, I'd say if there was anything I was pleasantly surprised with in this movie, I would say I guess it would be the cinematography. The movie looks nice. That's the apart from the cinematography is nice. The way it's edited, it's not like super. It's not super like exciting or anything because the shots themselves are pretty, but the way they're edited together doesn't make anything really exciting.
Okay.
But the like you can that's another thing you can see from the trailer. It's a the well the movie would be more would I think the movie would be more visually interesting if they didn't try to go for the Joker aesthetic of being kind of dark and gloomy. Oh, this society made me like this. Society made me Cruella Deville. We
Uh-huh.
live in a society
I
with that kind
guess
of a thing.
a few shots that stood out to me most. This one I mentioned when we were watching it. At this one point, Corella's standing at her fountain that she like really associates with, and the camera as it's recording it is kind of shaky and it's not like stabilized. And we joke that the camera is as unstable at this point as Cruella is. So
Yeah,
I thought that was kind of funny, and it did like add something to the scene. Another scene I liked was with the when they open the vault and like all the butterflies like fly out of the vault because they were um what is it, the cocoons were like sewn in
I think
on the dress.
I think there were moths.
I could have sworn at one point it looked like a butterfly, but if you're right, there were moths. Then
Because butterflies, if butterflies are everywhere, butterflies are nice. Moths are
yeah,
gross.
okay, that's a good point. So whatever the insect was, like
Yeah,
how they showed them flying out, that was really good. The only scene I didn't like was when Estella is getting chased by the dogs in the very beginning when she's at the mansion, and she like grabs a hold of the swing and it like swings her up, and like dogs are like trying to bite her from below. You remember that one?
uh,
Anyway, so at this point in the movie, early on, she's in the mansion. She's like running from the dogs, and she grabs hold of this like swinging flower covered swing, and it's hanging from the ceiling. And she like grabs hold of it and like flies up, and it shows like an aerial shot of like looking down of her, and the dog's like jumping up to bite her. It looked really weird, in my opinion, and I would just rather wish that wasn't there. Like, cut that part out. I mean, just personal preference.
yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's all we got for now. Any other final comments about the movie, Liam?
I'd say like I know I've kind of been dunking on the movie, but it might in terms of like recommendation, if you've seen like the trailer for the movie and you're like, oh, I might like this movie, then I would say watch it. And if you see the trailer for it and watch it and you're like, hey, this is something I'd like to watch, you won't like regret watching it or anything. It's not deep. It's not an unbearable watching
Oh no,
experience.
yeah,
It's just
It
It's if you weren't sure whether or not you like, hey, I want to hear what if this movie's anything special before I go watch it. There's nothing. You're not going to get anything new out of this movie. Is I
and to
guess my main
contrast that, I would like to say if you go in thinking like I'm probably not going to get any value from this movie, you will get something. Because I went in with that attitude where I was like, I really don't want to watch this movie, but we are trying to review every Disney movie that's coming out this year. So I was like forcing myself to sit down and watch it, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. That I enjoyed the movie as much as I did. So, so Liam's point of view was if you think you'll like it, and my point of view is if you don't think you'll like it a little. I guess is that an accurate representation, Liam?
uh, I'll sure yes. I don't
Sure,
know if
we'll go with
I don't know if I
that.
yeah I don't know if I agree that if you don't
It,
think you're going to like it, you'll come out of it liking it. But
no, not liking it. You'll come out with being pleasantly surprised that it wasn't terrible.
okay.
Okay, I don't know because I don't know what you went into it if you went in expecting to like it or not. Well, I guess I didn't
I
ask
went
you. Did you go in expecting to like it?
I went I'd like to say I went into it like with an open mind and with no expectations, but if I had to say what I expected the movie to be, I expected it to kind of be,
Accurate
oh,
to the.
yeah, to well, I no, I expected it to be what it was, which was a cash in, which is making taking a popular character, making them sympathetic, having them do stuff for 2 hours, and then sprinkle in some stuff that makes it connect to the movie that people already know.
Yeah. Okay, and then so final thing before we go, give it a number 1 out of 10. While you think about that, I'll start. So I would say I'd give this movie a 6 out of 10. Um, to explain my like mental ranking system, anything above a 5 is I like the movie, but I wouldn't give this like a 7, 8, 9, 10, just because it's very it's nothing exceptional. It's nothing I'd recommend to someone. It's nothing that like it wasn't bad, but I wouldn't recommend it. So that's why I say it's like somewhere in the middle. So yeah, 6 out of 10. Final answer. What about you, Liam?
I'd give it, I guess, a four, maybe three and a half. Like four is probably yeah
Okay,
four.
we'll stick to solid numbers. So 3, or what did you say 4? You said 4, right?
Yeah, we'll say four. It's not. There's nothing I can point to the movie and say it did this thing incorrectly, but it didn't try. And
Okay, it didn't have any risks or anything like
it didn't have any purpose.
that. Okay,
There was
so is that for
there
you? Is that
was
like you wouldn't recommend this movie? Is that what a 4 would mean?
uh yeah, I wouldn't recommend this movie, but if you're at someone's house and they put it
Put it
on,
on.
you're not gonna be in abject torture for 2 hours. So
Understood. Understood. All
yeah,
right. So yeah, if you all stayed to the end of this movie review, thank you. Um, yeah, so we'll be putting out more of these coming up. So this was the first movie review on our channel, and then we're gonna be having more coming up soon, like Luca, Black Widow. So make sure to stay tuned for those. But yeah, thank you for joining us today, Liam.
no problem. Thank you for having me.
All right, so I'll talk to you all later. Have a good night.